Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.
Good morning. Here we are starting the second week of the new year, and yet we have leftovers from 2020. The mud of last year is still hindering our lives. I was preparing a talk, but this week's attack on our nation's capital changed everything. An attack on our capital and on our Congress hasn't happened since the War of 1812. But this time it was not from a foreign power. It was an attack by American citizens to take over our government by force. And so I feel compelled to speak on this since it involves all of us and our livelihood. Some say we shouldn't be talking about politics in our temple. And yet, almost everything in our lives involves political decisions. Almost everything in our lives involves a religious decision. As I have said, COVID-19 is a health concern. And yet, it's only because our national government has not addressed it properly that somehow a very logical means of prevention, wearing masks, has become a political decision. Do we say that drinking and driving or driving over 100 miles an hour is a personal right? There are laws and political thought behind reasons keeping us safe from the activities of others. And now there have been days where over 4,000 people have died in one day. And I think over 360,000 Americans have died already in the last 10 months. So this attack on our capital has caused death to at least 5 people. Congress was in session to certify an election result. The instigators at a rally before the march and the attackers who invaded the Capitol voiced publicly that the intention of the attack was to disrupt the Congress from completing the certification of the November election. This has a profound effect on all our lives. Should we ignore it just because it happened in government? The incarceration of 120,000 Americans of Japanese descent was a government decision. Should we ignore that? Buddhism is a guide to life. It addresses the difficulties we face and has a process to deal with them. This is a religious spiritual issue because it is concerned with the welfare of all of us. I struggle in writing these Dharma talks because I know that some will find it difficult to hear because it goes against some personal beliefs. The Buddha's wisdom is often difficult to comprehend because it goes beyond our usual thoughts of good or bad, right versus wrong. However, we're in a time where it is important that we have guidance in determining what is true. Often it's difficult to hear the truth if it doesn't benefit me. There are many times in my life that I didn't want to hear the truth. The diagnosis of my son's illness was the truth that I didn't want to hear. The attack on our Capitol and on our Congress, as they were in session, is the culmination of 4 years of rhetoric and ideology that can only benefit a foreign power. It also benefits a few in terms of finance and race. These issues are much too complex to find easy solutions. So let's focus on the Dharma, which guides us in life. Whether we say it is an issue of health, economics, politics, or religion. A few weeks ago, I suggested that in a situation of conflict, we begin by, not by action, but by no action. To do nothing, to stop, sit and breathe. And we put our 2 hands together, representing 2 sides of issues. The Buddha expounded on his 4 noble truths. He taught that ignorance, hatred, and greed are the causes of suffering. On the other side, his 8-fold path was to counter suffering and guide us to awaken to wholesome prospects of perspective, thought, speech, conduct, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and meditation. His precepts also included not to lie. So before we contemplate this recent dilemma, let's consider how we view religion. One of the reasons Shin Buddhism may be difficult to understand is because it may talk in a way that's different than what we may expect. In America, it's very common in our Western religions to have prayer, to petition the deity or God to have the eternal world shift to our favor. And it's sometimes connected to how good or bad we may think we are. Buddhism is based on a different reality. We realize that the causes and conditions are occurring all the time and everywhere in our life. And our life is interconnected and impermanent. Everything is changing all the time. Every one of us is in this dynamic condition where everything is changing and everything is connected. Now, in this world, we're not focused on which one of us will be blessed by God or who will not be blessed by God. As Buddhists, it's up to us to wake up to what is true and real. Our guide is whether there is harmony and joy among us, or if there is ignorance, anger, hatred, and greed. If we are experiencing the discontent or being off-centered, we must realize that it's our thinking and behavior that is off-centered and off-balance. So our practice is to wake up, to realize we determine our own reality and our own future. This attack on our capital is a great opportunity to see our part in that. How heavy will the mud of 2020 be in leading us to see the light in 2021? I don't think anyone imagined the attack on our capital, especially this attack by Americans. The scenes on TV were horrible. The extreme display of hate and disrespect are only the outward display of how deep this division is. But these people were following words that they thought were true. So the basic question is, what is true? As I said earlier, as we sit quietly and contemplate both sides with our hands, we have one hand representing truth and the opposite side representing non-truth or lies. We have truth, wisdom, and non-truth, ignorance. On the one hand, Congress voting, certifying votes that have been consistent for over 200 years. And on the other hand, maybe the opinion of one person. On the one hand, the majority of states have certified election results. And on the other hand, there may be conspiracy theories. On the one hand, we have courts and judges certifying and dismissing cases of fraud. And on the other hand, there are unsubstantiated theories without proof. On the one hand, we have a free press that has been functioning for centuries. And on the other hand, a few print and radio and TV stations with conspiracy theories. And again, on one hand, we have opinions expressed by former associates of this government, mostly negative. And then on the other hand, there are words not followed by deeds. Each of us must wake up to correct. On the other hand, there may be thoughts of blaming others for our problem. This attack on the Capitol and on Congress itself shows how vulnerable democracy is. In a few short years, long established laws and customs are now challenged. And I'd like to point out the fragility and the similarity between democracy and Shin Buddhism. Shin Buddhism is also fragile. We have received the teachings that have sustained humankind for over 2,500 years. Will the words of the Buddha, the Dharma, sustain us? Or will we be listening to the words of some humans who've been around for just a few decades? There's still millions of Americans that are believing in a lie, not being wise enough to see truth. It's like we are in a large family with a large group with teenage mentalities. How and when will these teenage minds wake up? Things will not just disappear in this new year. Will the words of these teenage minds and their leadership help us? Or will the words of the Buddha, the Dharma, help us? Each of us must determine what we may do to help others. to change. Unless we practice to wake up, we will continue to have problems. Traditionally, at this time of year, we look forward to a better time. And as Shin Buddhist, I suggest that we do this in a very mindful manner. So please join me as we sit with the situation we're in, and we'll continue this thought in future talks, but do it mindfully. So please join me in mindful appreciation of the Nembutsu. Gasho, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namanda.